Well, hello again from Cherry in Florida. Today it's about trucks, so rather than clocks. In fact, I like to make all sorts of things, and perhaps clocks is my favourite, but I like to make other things too. And a couple of years ago, I made this truck, this Christmassy truck. I started with red trucks, and then when Cricut brought out their debossing tool, I thought it'd be nice to make a silver one, and as you can see, the surface of this one has got sort of debossing patterns on it, which I rather enjoyed doing. And it's got a Christmas wreath on the hood, and it's got a Christmas tree in the back, all made from paper. And it's lined with sort of Christmassy colours. I don't know if you can probably see some of that there. And I thought that I had posted a video, a tutorial on YouTube how to make this, but when I was looking through them, I haven't. So what we're going to do is make a smaller version of this one, which is going to be a spring truck this time in different colours. But these are not the first trucks I've made, and there are videos on there posted about some of my previous trucks with instructions like this one. This was my fall truck with the scarecrow and the pumpkins in the back and so on, and it had axles on this one so that the wheels turned, although I'm not doing that on the current one, because although that was fun, it's not really all that practical. They do turn, but it's not something you can roll along and use that way. So that was fun. And there are a couple more on there that I did put instructions for, so you could look at those. And that's why I'm not going to give a step-by-step instruction from start to finish for this one, because it really isn't necessary. They're made very much the same sort of way. But there are some aspects of this that I wanted to tell you about. So that's what I'm doing. And I already put some of it together. You always use the same method for my items. I have these strips that I call construction strips, that are really scored pieces of cardstock or paper that I put on all the seams on both the inside and the outside, which gives a really strong, firm construction. And I use my maker to cut it from Cricut chipboard. I usually use the 1.5mm chipboard because you can cut more intricate shapes from that easily, but you could use the 2mm heavy chipboard. Or if you don't have a maker, it is possible to make it with several layers of cardstock, or perhaps Cricut craft board is pretty good too. But some of it would be a little more difficult in construction to make it that way. But it is possible. I made my early clocks that way. So, oh, and if you have an Explorer rather than a maker, you can cut chipboard with a deep cut blade. I haven't tried Cricut chipboard that way, but I used to cut graphics medium chipboard that I got on Amazon reasonably successfully with my Explorer before this maker ever came out. So there's other options available to you. So I started with the trailer part. I covered all the seams the way I said, with the construction strips inside and outside, and I also started to cover the chipboard with white craft board, because this one I wanted to be white, though you could leave it in the chipboard colour because it looks like wood, and then eventually it's going to have the colour, these strips here on the outside, on the lower part, the same colour as the truck. So, and also I lined it with patterned paper, and I'm doing the same with the cab, which I'll show you in a moment. But it probably was a waste of time for me, because I bought this little crate. I think I got it at Dollar Tree, and I painted it with watery sort of acrylic paint to make it look like a darker wood colour. And these flowers are going to go on the inside, and when they are in there, you're not going to be able to see what I put on the inside, but I still lined it, because maybe in the future I want to put something else in there. I'll do it differently. So that's how far I've got with that part. And then I'm moving on to the cab part. So when I was putting the construction strips on this part, I put all the inside ones in first before I did anything else, and then I put the patterned pieces that I wanted on the inside. Again, you could leave that, you don't have to do that, because if you don't put these pieces on first, you won't get those in there, because you'll have these over the top of it, which won't look right. So you have to think ahead when you're making these things, to do things in the right order. Otherwise you'll get to a point where you'll find that you can't do the next part because you did it in the wrong order. So that's what I'm... Oh, and then in between the chipboard and the patterned paper, I have put some acetate windows, and I just use packaging I save from various things, and cut them out of that. And in fact there are some templates in the file for the windows you'll find. And in fact I'm going to do two files in Design Space, one that you would be using to cut the pieces out, and one that's there just for demo purposes only, and I will label what all the parts are, because when they're all laid out and there's so many of them, it can be very confusing, even to me sometimes. So that's what we're doing so far. So what I'm going to do next is attach other parts, and I've got the hood part here, and whoops, and I've got the window part, and I will sort it. Oh, there it is. Which I've already put the acetate on with. And in this case, I find you can use glue, but the glue tends to seep out and sometimes can make a mess of your acetate. So I quite often attach my acetate parts with this score tape, this double-sided tape first, and that helps a little bit. So I'm going to attach the roof next with these construction strips here, like that, on both sides. Oh, rather they're already there, so they will be, I will glue to that, and then I'll attach the outer ones. And then I'm going to attach the hood part and the window, windshield or windscreen next. And I will come back to you when those are all put together, but I first of all just wanted to show you this before I did those parts. So I'm about to attach the windshield. I've put the hood and the roof on already. Before I do that, I just put an extra construction strip here along the roof, and so that I can now put the inside piece of the roof in as well. You will probably have to cut these pieces slightly, the ones on the inside pieces, down a little bit to fit in. I could have tried to make them the exact size for you, but then you might not use the same materials and they still might not fit. So rather than do that, I try to make them just a little bit bigger so that you can cut them down to size rather than have them too small when you come to put them in. So I'm just going to put that piece in there, this decorative internal piece inside the roof, like so. Hope that fits okay. I think I'm just going to trim off just the slightest bit along this edge first. And that goes in there. And then I can attach the windshield there and put the outer construction strips on. Now usually I just use them that match the chipboard, but I'm going to use green ones now that match the internal paint colour, if you like, because if you have any that don't exactly quite join up, you might see the chipboard through the joins, and so if you put matching cardstock to your colour on the outside, then it'll look better where it fits. So I'm going to go back and do that. I just wanted to tell you those couple of things, and when I find my remote control, and I'll see you again in a few minutes. Okay, so I'm back again. I've covered all the seams with this green paper. I've stuck the two pieces together, and I used not only the white art glitter glue, but I also used some E6000, or it would be the equivalent of Yoo-hoo in England, because I wanted a very firm joining of the two pieces. Yours will have two that are basically this shape that you glue together. Mine didn't, because I messed up and I had to put mine on in two pieces there. So I've also added a couple of stabilizing pieces, because if it's only joined up here in the middle, it could maybe come apart if it, if you pulled it in the wrong direction. So I added a piece of scrap chipboard underneath across the two pieces, because you won't see that. And I also added some scrap pieces of green paper to stabilize the joints here, and here and here. That's maybe not necessary. I just want to make it extra firm. And we're ready now to put all the final pieces on. So I will tell you a few things about those as we go. You'll have some of these pieces which I'm going to put on the outside, and then I'm going to put a green strip across afterwards. It probably didn't need to go all the way down to the bottom, but I just thought it would make a firmer sort of, or easier, shall we say, smoother look to do it in one piece. And you'll also have some pieces like this. You might think, what are those for? Well, I just put them on each of these. They only go down that far, just to make it look like slats of wood. So I'm going to stick those on. And also make sure you've got these the right way round, because it isn't entirely symmetrical. So you've got to check before you do that and before you stick these white pieces on. So those are going to be glued there. There's this piece that goes on the hood. It's this shaped piece. That's 5 actually. I have pieces of chipboard glued together, and this piece of course goes on the top, and there's a long strip underneath here somewhere. There it is, and that's going to be glued on, let me show you, all the way around here, to cover that piece of chipboard and then trimmed to size at the end here. And I will go away and do that in a moment as well, but I just wanted to show you how that works. So that's that. The wheels are, again, several pieces of, I used a black artboard. You could use just regular chipboard, and if you want them black, you could paint them. You may not be able to find this crescent artboard that I have, in which case certainly chipboard works, and I understand that you can paint it easily as well. And then I have a white disc that I've stuck to it. I think I've already stuck that one on, right in the middle, right in the center of the wheel, to make a sort of white walled tire look. And then there's the hubcap, and I decided on purple metallic. As I say, this is a custom spring tuck, and this is embossed, or rather debossed with the Cricut, but you could make them plain. You don't need, you can remove that if you don't have a debossing tool and just have plain ones. I don't know whether you can see that. They've got sort of like a star on them. And that's all of those. These are the, what do you call those, wheel arches, something like that. And they have a similar arrangement. They have a strip that goes around them like this on the outside, and they have this on the front. But you'll notice the pieces at the back are a different shape. Only the front one is like that. The others are all that shape, and that is so that you can fit the wheel in there. And you're going to glue this and this to the cab, but I will show you how I do that when I've glued the rest of these pieces together. And of course, this piece goes in here, and as I say, internal pieces you'll have to trim slightly to fit, and then this is the radiator, and I'll show you what I do with that in a moment. So I'm going to glue some of these covering pieces on, and then I'm going to come back to you to do these final parts and show you what I did. Oh, and by the way, that is the windshield or windscreen part, which I also chose this holographic craft board from Cricut because I rather liked the look of it. And I'm going to tape mine on with double-sided tape. You could glue it on, but sometimes I find that these holographic and metallic pieces will show glue through if you're not careful. So I'm going to just put mine on with double-sided tape, and it actually goes up that way. So I'm going to put all those pieces in place and come back to you with some of the final advice in a moment. Okay, so we're back again, and the truck is now completely covered with the different papers. The white here and the green on top, and you can see now why it's a good idea to use green papers, construction strips on each of the edges, because they don't always meet up exactly. It depends on the thickness of your chipboard and which way round you join it up, whether it's on the outer side or the inner side, and so on. On this previous one that I showed you earlier, I actually added little strips afterwards that were meant to look like little metal strips with screws in them. But I'm not going to do that one on this one. You could put decorative strips on the edges if you wanted to, but I'm not going to. So now what we have the doors to adhere. There's one of them, and I have, there's my door, here it is. I have coloured the edges of them using this Distress Oxide, cracked pistachio, and it's quite easy, just like that. And stick the door piece on. Like that. And then there's this little door sign, and you want to check that you make them even on each side. So I've got this one about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom on that one, and I'm going to make this one the same, and in the middle even on each side. And like that, looks about right. Hold that into place for a moment while it dries. And then the door handle, there are 4 because I stuck 2 together each time. And don't forget, if you've got one on that side on this one, that this one's going to need to be on that side because they're opening on different sides of the vehicle. Make sure that sticks down. So I've got one there, about 1/4 of an inch in and 1/4 of an inch down. So I'll put the other one on the other side. To match. A bit further in, I think. Just a little bit. And then I'm going to stick the doors here, sort of about fairly near the bottom and just below the window. So I'll just stick one of those on to show you. And just make sure you do each side the same so that it matches. So there's the door. I'm going to put one on the other side, over here. May as well do that now. Hold that in place and it sticks down, and because the little signs are print then cut, and then I've laid them on top of a little piece underneath for a border. You'll find those pieces all in the file. I think I've got them about even, yes. So there's the doors. And then I've put one of the headlights on, but I'll show you how I did that in a moment. And then at the front, I put the 2 pieces on at the background of the radiator. They probably don't really need to be there because there's not much showing, but just in case, to put those on. And I nudged them up to the edges because I don't mind a little gap down the middle because you're not going to see it. So this is the radiator, which I use the holographic craft board for, in the bluey green sort of colour. And I put just very narrow pieces of scrap chipboard in between the two layers, just one strip down each side, just so it gave it a bit more dimension. And I coloured the edges of those green too before I stuck them in there. So I don't know if you can see that, but you can see that it does raise it up slightly, give it a bit of dimension. And that's straightforward. It's just going to be stuck on the front, and I am going to put it fairly close to the top. So I'll do that. Next. I will hold it like this so I can see what I'm doing. Make sure it's even on both sides, quite close to the top, and that it's straight, not at an angle or anything. Press it down on each side, and so that will be like that. And the bumpers, probably will put those on last, and the headlights, well no, I'll show you what I did with the headlight. On this one I got a little wooden ball and sawed it in half, or actually my husband did, and I stuck a gem on the front to look like a headlight, and then glued this onto the side of the truck, as you can see. I didn't have any little wooden balls this time, but I found these, had some little wooden spools that look like this, and we cut one of those in half, sawed one of those in half and sanded it a bit. So we got two pieces that look like this, that I've put the headlight on. And then I put a circle on the end to cover that. I wrapped the little wooden spool with the matching holographic craft board, and then just to be a bit snazzy, where it's raised up, I put a little collar on of the other craft board, the purple metallic one, and glued them all on, which I'm not going to do now, but I'll show you. There, like that. And then, I don't know where my gem is at the moment, I haven't got one, but I'll show you with this one in a second. Then I cut a piece like this. I did it by hand, it isn't in the pattern because it really depends what you're going to use to your headlights. But I cut a shape like that, and I scored it and folded it there. I glued it onto the piece of wood that has already been covered with those papers, and then I'll use a red one just to show you. It won't be red, of course. And then I glued the gem on top, and it leaves a tiny gap down here, and I don't want it moving afterwards, so I again cut a tiny piece of scrap chipboard, very small piece, and I just put it in between the two pieces where that gap is, if you can see it, and glued it to both this piece and this piece, just to keep them from moving outwards when it's on the vehicle. So you can't really see those. Oh, and I coloured the edges of that green just like I did the other things, and you really can't see that. It's there. I'll put it to the camera and hope that it's in focus there. But anyway, that's it. And so the other thing now, of course, is the wheels. And when you've got your wheel arch and your wheel all put together, what I do is I get glue and I put it in this part here. Both along the rim and there. And I push the wheel into place and hold it there so that it's nice and firmly attached to the, as I say, wheel arch or whatever you call those pieces of car. I don't know what they're called. I'm just guessing that's what they are. And I won't use that one at the moment. But then what you do here is, I think I'll do this side first because I've got the headlight on here. You stick the wheel to the vehicle and come in about 1/4 inch. But I make sure that the bottom part, these part here, is level with the bottom of the vehicle. That way, if you do that with all four, when you put it on its wheels, it should stand fairly firm without rocking. So I'm going to put one of those on for now. Let's say about 1/4 inch in, not too close to the door, not too close to this end. And make sure that the bottom of the wheel arch is level with the bottom of the vehicle. And I'm going to glue that, and you can glue all of the chipboard and half of the wheel down to where it will be glued to the, so something like that. Make sure I've got plenty of glue because I want it to be nice and firm. You could use hot glue, but I find that actually it doesn't stay necessarily as firm as using this other kind of glue. So I'm going to put this one on first, about 1/4 inch in from the end, and level with the bottom on both sides and hold it into place. And they probably need to be held firmly for a while, or put a weight on them to make sure that it sticks nice and firm. And I will find a weight in a moment and do that and do all four of them. And then I will come back to you and show you the final pieces that we need to do, which is very small after this. So I will go now for a little while and sort out these wheels. As I say, I'm going to stick all four of them in the same way all the way around, and I'll come back to you. Okay then, final stages. I've stuck the wheels on, I put the doors on, I've got one more headlight to put on, and the rear lights and the bumpers, and we've got a sign for the back. The wheels and the wheel arches, or I don't know, is that the wing? I'm not sure. However many pieces you cut is really how thick you want them to be. Mine are quite, I like mine quite sort of substantial looking, to look like real tyres, and I think mine is about seven layers of the black and 8 of the, well, 7 of the back part and 1 layer at the top part for mine. So, but it's a matter of personal choice to a large extent. I coloured the tops of this white part with one of these chalk writers. It's kind of a bit like a stiff lipstick kind of thing, but it rubs in quite easily, and I made, because this part was chipboard that you could see here with the white on each side, so I coloured those. I could have got mine a little, mine wobbles slightly. The other thing you can do is when you're sticking the last wheels on, you can stand it up first and move it so that you can see that it's steady, but it doesn't matter too much. And so I'm going to put the bumpers and the last headlight on, and the rear lights. And the rear lights are just little red gems on top of a piece of matching holographic craft board, and then I'll put them on after I put the bumper on. The bumpers are 2 pieces each, and just stick them one on each side so that it gives it a bit more body, and also so that it doesn't look purple on the front and brown on the back. As I say, you could use silver or, you know, chrome sort of colour instead if you wanted to. The one that's scored is obviously for the front, where it's bent round slightly, and what I did is to raise them away from the vehicle a bit rather than just flat against it. I cut again several small tiny pieces actually of scrap chipboard, and I glued them together to make I think there's about 5 layers there, just a little oblongs, and I'm going to just put those on the back, and I coloured the edges green again to match the vehicle. Actually I missed that part, let's do that. And I'm going to put those on the back of the bumper to raise it above the vehicle a bit. So I will put those on here. I'm just going to see where it's going to fit, and I'm going to put them about here, and I don't want them to be too long and show too much. Anyway, let's give it a go. Can always adjust it afterwards. So I'm going to put them there and here. You can't see that, but I'll show you in a moment. Something like that. And then I'm going to stick them to the front of the vehicle, close to the bottom of the radiator. In fact, they're going to, looking at it, they're actually going to stick to the edge of the radiator. And if I move them out a bit, that would be better. Let's try that. It's a little better, they're just off the edges of the radiator. I'll show you in a moment. So I'm going to glue those to the car, or truck actually. Either side of the radiator, and push them in slightly so that they follow the shape of the vehicle. And I'll turn it round so you can see. They're going to take a little while to stick. And I might put more green colouring on those, or purple actually might work better when I look at it now. And move that over. Well, it's still not permanently stuck. Yes, I will think about them. Probably green actually, but maybe purple. And there you can see samples on it like that. And probably it looks like that. And I'm going to do the same at the back, but that's a flat bumper, and I'm going to put one in the middle on the back. And one each end. So I'm going to put one in the middle, and I'm going to put one each end as well. And I'm going to glue those to the back. They're meant to be like brackets, you know, that you would have to. So it takes a while actually to stick to this shiny surface. Put that in place on the back, and will colour some of that afterwards too. But for now, put it down at the bottom. You can't see, but I'm going to show you in a minute. Only I need to see what I'm doing, make sure I get it even. That looks about right. And then I'm going to put this sign on. This sign has little holes in the corners, and I have put some baker's twine through, and I'm going to tie it to the back railing. I'll show you that in a minute. Move those over a bit so you can see the sign properly. And that's there, like that. And I'm just going to glue the rear lights into place because they should have stopped sliding around by now. And they need to go, let me turn it around. They need to go, you need to be able to see them next to the sign, so I'm putting them right close to the edges and near the top of the green part. So I'll glue those on. One. Oh, and I see I still have one headlight to glue on. Oops. That's those. And close to the edges so you can actually see them. That's those. And what else? Headlight. I'm just going to put that little piece of chipboard that I told you about in here to make sure that that stays closed, and that will stop it from swiveling when it's on the truck. And I'll glue that one into place. Making sure it matches the other side. That. It's looking good. This one's slightly high. That's it. Like that. And I have made 3 little wreaths. They're in your pattern. You certainly don't need 3. I just wanted to be able to change it up now and then. What I really liked about these is that they are not lots of little pieces. They are like pierced rings that sit on top of each other, and through the holes you can see, you know, the other bits of the flowers and so on. So they're very easy to put together. I put a couple of extra layers of some of them just to give them a bit of body, and I'm going to put that on the front hood. I've also got one with Easter eggs, so if it's Easter I might change it up and put some Easter eggs and maybe a bunny or something in the back. And I've got an alternative flower one that kind of matches the rest of it. I'm just adjusting my headlight, slipping slightly. That's it. And finally I have this little little box of flowers, and I put some flower foam in there, and I put some little flowers in to look like spring, and it matches the oh yes, I have got it here. I have this on my dining table at the moment, sort of a spring arrangement, and they will match. So I will put those in the back like that, and there is our spring truck. And I don't glue down the wreath because as I say, I like to change it up. So here it is, all finished. I hope you like that. And oh, did I tell you one last thing? I glued the spare wheel on the side here. Just glued it to the white boards here, and I placed it about there. So in case you were wondering why it had 5 wheels, that's the spare tyre. And there we are. I'll put it where you can see it better. I may decide to ink it up a little bit with these Distress Ink and Distress Oxide. I want it to be very subtle when I do it, and I will practice on a piece of paper and a piece of this paper and check it out before I do that. But I thought I'd give it a little bit of a shadow here and there to give it a bit of dimension and look like it's but I haven't quite decided whether I'm going to do that, but that's my thought. So there we are, front and back and side. And that's goodbye from me then until next time. You can have a look online. I've got lots of clocks on YouTube and several trucks as well, and if you look at some of those, if you want more details about how these things go together, you'll find them on there. So goodbye from me until our next project.